Hi, everyone. Moving into middle adulthood. This is an interesting stage. I feel that it is becoming much like adolescence. The imprecise ending and beginning is a little bit crazy, largely because we are finding that people are living longer, healthier lives. So a lot of times we don't necessarily think of them in middle or late adulthood so much. But they say usually the beginning of this is 40 to 45 and right around 60 to 65 for the end. So when we look at the changes, because unfortunately this is another stage of change, and they are not as pretty or attractive as what we saw in adolescence, we start to see the first visible signs of change and aging. For example, fine lines, wrinkles, there's a loss of collagen in the skin, um, there's age spots, the hair is becoming thinner and grayer, and there's a change in the fingernails and toenails. They often become more rigid and stiff. So lots of little outward changes. For the most part, height is going to stay largely stable until about 55. There tends to be a height decrease and a weight increase. So unfortunately, that's a negative equation there. Sometimes you see the body fat increase about 10% of body weight in adolescence and then about 20% in middle age. So you can see there's a percentage difference in the body fat. And as we've been talking about through all of the age stages, is the more weight that you carry that is unhealthy, the higher your probability of having health issues, including at this point now death, increases. We also see changes in the muscular strength and bone density. These two kind of go hand in hand. You will see a noticeable change specifically in the legs and back by mid 40s. And it's one of those crazy things I think that sneaks up on people. I've heard that from my father-in-law and things like that. Also, bone density. This is something that you have or should have been trying to counteract nutritionally as well as with weight bearing exercise throughout your life. We do see that bone density does reduce with age. Men tend to lose about an inch of height, where women lose about 2 inches of height. One of the reasons why we see this is osteoporosis. This is a thinning and a more fragile way of the bones becoming. It's lack of calcium, it's lack of exercise. After the late 30s, there was a progressive bone loss. Women tend to see this much more than men, but men also do have the same kind of bone loss. There's changes in vision, visual acuity, so your ability to see something far away, find spatial detail, that sort of thing starts to decline. The lenses, as with everything, are starting to lose elasticity. They are becoming less transparent, and so less light can come in. And you're also seeing a couple conditions that go along with this age, presbyopia, and that basically means, sorry, went too fast. That basically means that is a near universal loss of near vision, so inability to see things up close. Hearing is another thing that changes. All of the senses are changing. There's a gradual decline in middle adulthood. Presbycusis is the inability or loss to hear high frequency sounds. About 12% do experience this between the ages of 45 and 65. This is more common in men than it is in women. The other thing that you see that are kind of primary aging is the loss of hair cells in the inner ear and the eardrum becoming less elastic. All of these are impacting our ability to hear. So the hearing aids and that sort of thing become more common in this age group. The cardiovascular system is going to change overall. So you see less blood pumped through the heart. You see the arteries changing, they narrow. Cholesterol levels can increase with age. It might accumulate on the artery walls by 60. So you're seeing all of these things, they're setting up for heart issues. And that's why I'm a big fan of the use it or lose it, the primary versus secondary aging. Trying to maintain your health is so important because all of these things are naturally happening. But if you can exercise and eat more healthy, you are definitely going to reduce your risk for heart attack and stroke. There's less accidents because there's less risk that is being taken. There is more immunity to colds and allergies. However, you do see more chronic conditions. So for example, cancer, heart disease, that sort of thing. This is like the main area or cause of death at this age. Men have a higher rate of the fatal chronic conditions, specifically ones that are related to stress, like high blood pressure and heart disease. And women have more of the non-fatal ones, the annoying ones, like arthritis. There is a lot of change in sexuality as well. The climacteric is the universal word that they use to describe what happens for both men and women. Women, we often think of that big thing, the menopause, right? So there's also andropause, and basically both men and women are experiencing changes in sexuality. So testosterone is the male hormone that basically allows things to work, and this is starting to decline. It's a much slower decline than estrogen for women, but in general, there's bodily changes. Like for example, the vagina becomes less elastic and thinner, it shrinks. All of these things do impact desire to have sex as well as ability to have sex. So as I was saying with menopause, usually it's late 40s, early 50s. It is characterized by a cessation of menstruation. It is a dramatic change in the level of estrogen, off and on, not like the dimmer switch. My dad and my husband are electricians, so that's my analogy. You know, how you work the light switch and a slow decrease in testosterone or turn it on and off, that's estrogen, okay? Hot flashes, nausea, fatigue, rapid heartbeat, these are all things that are kind of the precursors, perimenopause things. Also depression, irritability, lots of mood things that go along with that. Same thing for men. It's just much more progressive. It's much more slow and gradual. Nothing dramatic like the estrogen loss. Testosterone is about 1% per year. Sperm count does start to decline. However, men really don't lose their fertility. They may lose the ability to be sexually functioning or change, but they don't lose their fertility per se. The testosterone drop does sometimes reduce in lower sex drive, as well as changes in erections. For the most part, people in middle age are not interested in having sex. There may be a frequency in the intercourse that changes, might decrease. However, there's a lot of other things that make it able to happen more often. For example, the kids are no longer at home. Menopause, there's no birth control. So, you know, it's very much an individual type of thing. When we're looking at cognitive development, specifically intelligence, fluid and crystallized come up. So the fluid is how to deal with new situations. Crystallized, on the other hand, is a cumulative, a collection of information, skills, strategies that you have basically received or compiled through education and experience. This continues to increase where you see the fluid intelligence start to decline. A lot of that has to do with spatial orientation, perception, and verbal memory. Information processing, what we see is that it does start to decline in early adulthood. It's not very noticeable. A lot of these things are extremely cumulative. So it's something that kind of feels like it pops up, but it's been happening, progressing through time. Then we look at the reaction time tasks. This is comparing middle-aged adults to young adults. I do see that they're a little bit of a decline, or the middle-aged adults are a little bit slower than the young adults. You see more of the decline happening for women than for men. When we look at memory, there are different kinds of memory, and we actually see that if adults use memory strategies such as organization, imagery, that decline can actually be decreased, and they actually might improve memory. So when we look at memory, there's that like just different kinds. So notice that some may not decline as much as others. It's interesting, this time of life, because of the fact that they're aging to the point where maybe the children are leaving home and they can focus on one thing, they tend to be much more satisfied with their job than they were before. Often also they've paid their dues and their job might offer more wages, more free time, more vacation, things like that. They see that this isn't increased satisfaction between the ages of 20 and 60, which makes sense. 20-year-olds are often doing grunt work, where 60-year-olds might be doing more managerial or kind of upper level, if you will. The biggest thing is flexibility of work schedule. If you can work when you want and how much you want, that is when you are the happiest. Makes sense, right? Leisure, there is more time for them to have leisure. So there's more freedom to pursue activities that they're interested in, hobbies, sports, reading. The big thing I like to talk about here, the type A behavior, the perfection, this whole I gotta do it. There is a great amount of research about taking your vacations and how they actually increase your lifespan. Erikson proposed generativity versus stagnation. Generativity is the idea of leaving a legacy, immortality through a legacy. You can do this by parenting, teaching, leading, coaching, things that you do to benefit the community. Stagnation or self-absorption is when you basically get so focused on yourself, which I mean, at this point probably feels good, but when you come to the review stage and you're kind of looking at all the things that you could have, should have, would have done, it definitely is hard to resolve that last stage of Erikson's psychosocial crises. So self-absorption happens when you just don't give to the other people. We do see affectionate love or companionate love increasing during this time frame. Security, loyalty, mutual emotional interests are key. It's all about kind of taking care of another person and finding responsibility for someone else's happiness. There's, specific knowledge that they share with one another. They have their own, inner way of inside jokes and things that they know about each other that no one else does. That information definitely is kind of that key to that relationship. We also see marriage and divorce. Some people get married in this, either a remarriage or it's been a long time, they just hadn't gotten married yet. A happy marriage in general, especially for men, does decrease anxiety, depression, and feelings of vulnerability. There's a lot of positive emotions that come with a good marriage. However, not every marriage is good, and the more volatile marriages that are not necessarily happy, those are not going to help you at all. At this point, usually people are pretty positive when they report their happiness with their marriage, excellent or very good. Divorce at this time is hard. It's hard at any time. A lot of times this is considered like your best years, if you will, and to divorce now feels like a failure. Also, when we look at, the kind of the things. So for example, at this point, divorces are going to be more over resources and income as opposed to children and visiting time and things like that. So it may be maybe less fiery because of the fact that there's no children, but it also could be equally as bad because of the money, and money makes people crazy sometimes. The empty nest and the refilling of the nest. So empty nest, you guys heard of this, kind of feeling like depressed or a decrease in marital satisfaction when the kids leave. Parents feel empty, like there's nothing. However, this is something that we've seen kind of changed a little bit because of the fact that so many parents are both working, and this was really true more so for parents that live vicariously through their children. So they are the, parents that do, this is all I do. This, kids are all I do. And that is so hard to have anymore. Our economy is such that most people work as opposed to having a stay-at-home parent. So it's kind of different now. We are seeing more kids, adult children, I should say, come back to live at home. Sometimes it's a failed career, sometimes it's an unsuccessful marriage. 42% of parents who have had their kids come back have had serious conflicts. It's just a really hard gray area of who's in charge, who, it's a disequilibrium, lots of adjustment on both sides. The kids have been out. They know what it's like to have their own rules and make their own rules. The parents have had them gone. They've had freedom. You can see how this could be kind of crazy. You do see a difference in the way that kids look at their parents during this time. Middle-aged parents notice that their children become more respectful and appreciative of them because of the fact that they're living what they already did, and they might see now how much their parents did for them. And a lot of times, the parents of adult children regret not having so much involvement in better relationships with their kids. That can totally happen as well. At this point, there's a lot of restructuring of perceptions of parents. The kids are seeing them as people as opposed to mom and dad, and that changes the relationship significantly. Siblings, for the most part, if they haven't been close, they're not going to be close. If they have always been close, that is something that will continue. What you see in childhood is what you see in adulthood. And that's it, guys. So thanks.